finally, 2 days ago, I told you how America called China's bluff on Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. Now with their bluff exposed, Jinping is getting desperate. He wants to prove a point to his domestic audience. And in an act that betrays complete loss of control, he fired 5 ballistic missiles into Japan's exclusive economic zone. Is he trying to ignite a world war? Let's debate.
48 hours after Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan,
it's really clear that while China has stood in the way of Taiwan participating and going to certain meetings, that they understand that they will not stand in the way of people coming to Taiwan. It's a show of friendship, of support, but also a source of learning about how we can work together better in collaboration.
5 ballistic missiles launched by China's military during exercises around Taiwan landed inside Japan's exclusive economic zone. The Japanese have responded firmly to this declaration and provocative action by the Chinese.
It is not the first time we hear U.S. politicians say that they are standing together with certain people, but history and the facts have repeatedly shown that whomever the U.S. politicians claim they are standing together with will become the targets of chaos and disaster. Look at Iraq, Syria, Libya, and Afghanistan, and also look at what Pelosi called a beautiful sight to behold in Hong Kong, and the people, the separatists who are responsible for that. What has become of them? Just look at that.
Japan has called it a grave national security concern. Taiwan has begun mobilization of its own. Taiwan has cancelled all flights in light of the escalation.
我要在此呼吁国际社会支持民主台湾，共同遏制片面、不理性的军事行动。台湾也会如同过往，和区域内的成员以及全球民主伙伴共同合作，维护台海
And the Chinese are almost anticipating a war, explaining how the population should behave in case of aggression against China on state television. All this happened right at the time when the United States Secretary of State was at the ASEAN gathering, urging China to not create a situation of escalation.
And I hope very much that Beijing will not manufacture a crisis or seek a pretext to increase its aggressive military activity. We, countries around the world, believe that escalation serves no one and could have unintended consequences that serve no one's interests.
Currently, Nancy Pelosi is in Tokyo. And it is clear an unhinged China is gunning to provoke and escalate. But are they ready for the consequences? Let's debate.
We have with us Peter Kuznick of the American University, Director of the Nuclear Studies Institute there, Andrew K.P. Leung, China strategist from Hong Kong. And my first question is to Mr. Yasuhide Nakayama, who is the former Senior Vice Minister of Defense of Japan. Mr. Nakayama, shouldn't you really be blaming America for the provocation? And are you really surprised at this, this Chinese posturing?
Yes. I think that situation today is different from what world leaders decided compared to 50 years ago. Moreover, after Hong Kong's handover, China broke the international treaty of one country, two systems. At the same time, the United States has said that its policy on Taiwan remains uncharged, and that does not want China to escalate. I think it means to maintain a one China policy. As a Japanese citizen, I really fear the threat since 2010 because Chinese PLA activities expanding, especially at the South China Sea and also the East China Sea. If you look from the satellite view, Chinese really expanding artificial island and they have more than 3 runways, almost 3,000 meters. And Xi Jinping said they are not going to use as a military facility, but unfortunately, they are using as a military facility. And also in 1991, they didn't have any nuclear submarines, but today they have more than 50, close to 60. And if you look at the outer space, you can find lots of space debris and also Chinese killer satellite. So once, if the war happening, I think the Chinese PLA using lots of new game-changing technologies like Russia when the 2014, when they invade on Ukraine, Crimea Peninsula. So we have to learn from that historical moment. And now the Chinese PLA, I think, already tried to attack on cyber warfare towards Taiwan. So the Taiwan's matter is not just a Taiwan's matter. Taiwan's
my
matter
own assessment.
Thank you.
My own assessment, Mr. Nakayama, is that I do not think the Chinese will take it more beyond aggressive posturing. However, Mr. Leung, how can China demand that others should respect their sovereignty when you are firing missiles into what is essentially a Japanese economic zone? You are firing missiles into other countries' territories while demanding that your sovereignty should be respected. It's completely anachronistic to expect that.
Well, I think that one has got to look at how this happened in the first place, because President Xi, in his talk with President
why is
Biden,
China violating Japan's sovereignty? If you want to take on America, you can. But if you can't take on America, why attack Japan?
Well, I don't think that it was a deliberate kind of attacking Japan. Don't forget, it's a massive exercise as a warning or as a punishment for Taiwan to allow this very high-profile visit, which President Xi already warned President Biden before, that should such a visit take place, then Beijing will have no alternative but to mount military kind of measures to discourage this further hollowing out of the one China policy, because in spite of the lip service played by the United States to the one China policy, all the past years have seen the consistent hollowing of this concept by allowing more and more senior officials to visit China, creating more and more space for Taiwan to perform as if Taiwan was a separate country. So this is a hollowing out of the concept. And if don't forget that Nancy Pelosi is not just a House representative, she is the second in line to succeed the U.S. presidency. If this situation is allowed, then it doesn't take long for the United States president to visit Taiwan and for Taiwan to be invited. And all the other leaders in the world would come to Taiwan as if Taiwan was a separate country. So obviously, this is a red line for China. And the military exercise, let's not forget.
My next question is to Mr. Kuznick. Mr. Kuznick, who's joining us from Washington. Mr. Kuznick, how would America have reacted? The Americans are quick to condemn the Chinese, but isn't it true that the Americans follow their own Monroe Doctrine, which says that the entry of any country into the Western sphere of influence is a direct threat to your national interests? So you pretty much define half the world as your own.
Well, that's been the case since 1823. United States.
So why does it need to be the case in 2022?
Nancy Pelosi deliberately provoked in a stupid and reckless act, and she knew what was going to be the result. But the problem now is that countries don't respect each other's red lines. The United States did not respect Russia's red lines when it came to Ukraine and NATO. Pelosi did not respect China's red lines when it comes to Taiwan. I mean, we just don't need these conflicts. There's nothing going to be gained by the Taiwanese from Pelosi's visit, but now the world is much more dangerous. You probably heard the statement that Antonio Guterres made a couple of days ago. He said humanity is just one misunderstanding, one miscalculation away from nuclear annihilation. We're dealing with nuclear armed states now. This is too dangerous to be wantonly provocative. And this is just an unnecessary crisis that the United States has inflamed.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, but who's going to pull back? We know American history. America is a master at provocation, violating territorial sovereignty of other countries, dropping atomic bombs, killing hundreds of thousands of Japanese, approving of billions of arms deals to bomb Iran, and dropping 46 bombs a day. You're a country which in various parts of the world drops 46 bombs a day. Mr. Kuznik, this has to stop. This provocation was entirely American. You've achieved your strategic objectives, but what really was the objective here? This is brinkmanship.
Has been to contain China for years now. Things got worse under Trump, and then Biden, instead of changing policy, has doubled down on Trump's policies. Biden has surrounded himself with China hawks. They might not be as extreme as the Trump people. They might not actually want to.
You can't blame China.
But they
you can't blame China. No, you can't blame China. No, you cannot blame China. And I want to go. I want to go to Mr. Nakayama yet. Mr. Nakayama, I think the Japanese must also weigh in on the Americans at this point, because you are in the line of attack. Beijing will want to target you. Maybe they'll target the Americans later. But this is dangerous. I think somewhere the Japanese need to remind the Americans about how they reacted when the USSR, they thought, is putting missile deliveries on Cuba. They just blocked off all of Cuba. Maybe the Japanese need to weigh in on the Americans. What do you think, Mr. Nakayama? To end this.
Thank you for your opinion, and thank you for having same feeling with the Japanese citizens. And I can say that again, the situation today is different from what world leaders decide 50 years ago. Moreover, after Hong Kong's handover, China broke the international treaty of one country, two systems. And the United States remains concerned about peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. It says it opposes China's unilateral attempts to change the status quo. At the same time, the United States has said that its policy on Taiwan remains unchanged, and that does not want China to escalate. I think it means to maintain a one China policy. U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Commander Philip Davidson told a Senate Armed Service Committee hearing last year that China would invade Taiwan within the next 6 years. He testified that it was possible. Commander Davidson said, "I am concerned that China are increasing their ambition to replace the United States, our country's role as leader in the rule-based international order by 2050. He said before that, Taiwan is definitely one of the goals of the ambition. I believe that the policy of ambiguity that has been implemented in the relationship between Taiwan and China has reached its limits. And the invasion of the South China Sea and the East China Sea has already begun, actually. Non-peaceful uses of space have also begun. China has more military satellites than the United States. I predicted that the time will come when Japan will have to raise the level of its defense. Over the next 5 years, we, the Japanese government, will double up our current defense spending to 130 billion US dollars.
I'm sure they will.
2%
I'm
GDP.
sure they will, but Mr. Nakayama, it will be tragic if the world moves towards a global confrontation because two struggling American politicians are trying to resurrect their careers I thank you all very much for joining us for that short conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, without a doubt, I shall see you once again at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Till then, good night and goodbye.